Hello, everybody. Welcome to the panel discussion about a significant topic, data and intelligence to accelerate Muslim lifestyle. Data is growing at such a rapid pace, but turning it into meaningful results is not that fast yet for most companies, right? But we increasingly learn that data is essential to understand our customers and personalize our solutions. This is exactly what we are going to discuss today. How prepared businesses for being a data-driven company, and where should they start to use data to serve their community? These are a few questions we would like to address today, if time allows, with our wonderful experts. A few quick notes before we start. This session is part of the Halal in Travel Global Summit, hosted by CrescentRating, and thanks for joining. My name is Veysel Gokbel. I am a senior product manager, senior data product manager at ShareDesk. It's a global data provider of digital consumer behaviors. And I'm also the co-founder and board member at HalalTravels.com. It's an online travel agency. Today, I'll be moderating this wonderful panel with two experts, Fazal Bahardeen from CrescentRating and Afraz Jaffri from Gartner. Welcome to the session, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Veysel.
Assalamu alaikum. Nice to see you.
Wonderful. Yes, great. Thanks for joining. So why not, Fazal and Afraz, why not each of you introduce yourself and at the same time share your thoughts about the power and importance of data and intelligence to accelerate the Muslim lifestyle. From there, we can move into our panel discussion. We have wonderful questions, but we also want this panel discussion as a kind of very flowy. So why not we start with Fazal, if you're fine.
Thanks, Veysel. So I think we when we started CrescentRating almost 13, 14 years back, and we wanted to convince the travel industry on why they should focus on the Muslim travelers. And we realized that we cannot do that unless we have some level of research, some level of numbers to convince them. So we, when we started our journey, our intention was to really make Muslim travelers, be able to travel worry-free around the world, explore the world without any worry. And our intention was never to deep dive into research and data at that time. However, for us to convince the market, we realized that we have to have that, research and numbers to convince the industry. Because at the end of the day, the hospitality industry needed to know, okay, if you want to invest in making it easier for Muslims to travel and welcome them in our services and facilities, what are these numbers? So that's how we got started. So we have, alhamdulillah, the last 13 years we have done, we started very small, but now I think we are probably one of the biggest providers of research and insights into the Muslim travel sector. However, we are still struggling with this whole thing. We have been doing so many research projects. We do a lot of reports with MasterCard, together with MasterCard on this sector. I think we're just released the latest report on the Global Muslim Travel Index 2022, which is almost the 23rd or I think the 22nd report that we have released the last 13 years. So I think data for us was a requirement to convince the industry, and that's how we got started. But now what we are faced with a situation now, we have a lot of data with us, especially, demographic data that, we probably have the biggest database of demographic data in terms of, countries, age groups, because that's what, travel industry requires. However, I think the real challenge is still, although we do use it in many ways, the real challenge is how can you really maximize and exploit this data. I mean, that's the challenge we still sort of face. We have sheets and sheets of Excels. We are now trying to put them in SQL databases so that we can better manage. But having data is one thing, but managing that data and getting insights out of it is a different ballgame altogether, as probably you gentlemen know better than me. So that's
awesome. Yes, these are great insights from, I think, number of points. So first, CrescentRating is a research company. So you're doing a lot of research there. This is data, right? So sometimes the data comes in a form of survey. Sometimes it comes from a kind of other types of data collection, but it's a data. It's a very valuable data there, affecting the decisions, especially the data that you share as a kind of meaningful insights used by other companies. Also, HalalTrip, of course, is collecting a lot of data. So, Afraz, go ahead, please.
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the introduction, what was mentioned was, about how data really has a power to transform the way in which business is done and the way in which companies operate. So it's not just no longer something which is just a nice to have. Okay, it's good to have a spreadsheet with all of our customer details, and we can understand who they are. We've got lots of these that we produce monthly or quarterly reports. That's kind of a previous generation of data management. But now we're in this era where everything is becoming data driven, and in my role as an industry analyst, I help organizations, and in particular data and analytics leaders, to incorporate the right processes, the right tools, the right technology, the right people, the right skills in order to become a data-driven organization. And I think with respect to the the Muslim lifestyle space, we see so many other companies now which we use day in, day out, and how much they know about us, right? So they know everything about our our preferences, what things we bought, what things we are likely to buy next, whether that be books, whether that be clothes or whatever. These are the tech companies, online e-commerce, retail giants. So I think with regards to the Muslim lifestyle space, there's really been a gap there where our own needs and our own preferences and our lifestyles are not really being catered for. It's still a very general. We're still using these, the general kind of marketplaces where the recommendations and the data that is being used is always very target. It's not specific to what I as a Muslim, or we all as a Muslims kind of need in our lives. So first of all, there's a big opportunity here. There's a big space. And we've seen some, targeted companies who are really looking at how they can benefit, Muslims in their lifestyle, as Fazal, CrescentRating, and the and being able to have more data on the travel aspects of Muslims' life. But there's all sorts of things. There's financial aspects. There's what do we wear, how we go, the transportation, housing, accommodation. All of these things, even social media, social networks, very few opportunities where actual the focus is on the Muslims. So there's a big opportunity, and as Fazal said, to be really good, and if you're thinking about how to start doing this, data exploitation and insight generation becomes key, because this is what all the companies are using to be able to target individuals. So with our as Muslims, we have very particular preferences, but unless we have the data which backs up what we might think is actually happening, what we might think people like or people want, we can't actually do that until we collect that data and we look at it and we analyze it and we do get the insights out. So there's a journey that needs to be taken here, but one which is very rewarding and one which requires some investment and some time. But over time, you will see how that has an impact on not just in your own kind of business or organization and the goals that you have, but also has an impact on people, on us as consumers, where we have tailored and specific products and recommendations for our lifestyle. And I think that's very important for people to become more aware of how they can use data to do that.
Awesome. Yes, I think you've raised a number of important points. So one thing that attracted my attention was you addressed insight. So a lot of companies start talking about the buzzwords, right? Machine learning, data science, but indeed everything should start with an insight. You know, how you need to get the insight first about your community before you predict the future for your audiences, or etc. I think we'll come back to that point. So I think the insight point of data and intelligence is really crucial, especially at the early stages. But I would like to ask a kind of main question in order to lead our conversation. And you both already addressed some of the points of that question. But data in decision making is critical, right, as you addressed, and it will continue to be a significant factor for the success of companies. But I'm really interested in how prepared companies serving to Muslim populations are about using data effectively. Fazal, for example, already addressed from his point of view, from his experiences. But when it comes to taking an action, where should companies start using data to make better decisions, to accelerate customer engagement with the products they feature, etc.? Where should they start? I think emphasizing the importance, addressing the importance of it, I think almost everybody agree probably, of these listeners, of these panelists. But how action we should take, I think, is a critical question that not everybody is aware of that, or they don't know where to start. So why not, Fazal, I would like to start with you, based on your experiences, where the companies who are new to data space should start. So what are your learning and experiences from your businesses? What are your recommendations as an expert in this space?
I think, as I said, we started, 12 years ago with the spreadsheets and all that, and we have just about migrated to SQL and some kind of management, visualization and insight. So I think data, somebody who is starting now, I think really should, don't have to go through the struggles that we have had for the last 12 years, but they could really get some help, because even now we are struggling to I think, having data expertise, either, I mean, we probably at where we are, we can't really still afford to have that level of data expertise within the company. We are still a, smaller entity, and you probably need, external help on this one. So I think my, biggest learning from all these 12 years is, if you're starting on data now, get some help, because it's such a otherwise you'll waste a lot of time. Absolutely, you can waste a lot of time if you don't get the real expertise, how to structure your data. I mean it starts from, collecting the data, cleaning the data, structuring the data, even before you can get insights. I mean you can't get insights if you don't structure well, and you struggle with that. So I think, getting real help from experts on how to build your data literacy, I think, is key.
I definitely agree with that. Afraz, would you like to add anything there?
Yeah, it's definitely it's very important to think about this from a very early stage. And if you're already kind of past that stage, then there's no time like now to start thinking about it. But one of the most important things is to actually think of this as a business driver. So sometimes we talk about this as being, people understand, oh yeah, I know it's good if we did this, and like we said at the beginning, it's still seen as something which is nice to have. But actually think about your own business objectives and priorities, and then link the value that you're going to get back to the data that you need, or that you have, or that you are collecting, and make the join there between actually in order to meet our business objectives and become a better company and to serve our customers better, we need to invest and we need to make this a priority. So we need to have stakeholders who understand that. So if possible, it pays, to get people who understand the value of data-driven decision-making, even if they don't have a specific role for data analytics. At least whenever the role they're in, they can be the champion, or they can be the stakeholder, the sponsor, who then is ready to do to run those initiatives. And then in terms of where to start, we need to think about different levels of analytics. So there's obviously descriptive and diagnostic. So descriptive is where we want to look at what's happening right now. So do I have the tools, or do I have the insights in place to actually understand all the things that are happening right now to do with my, doing my business, or to do with the customers that I have? What are they buying? What are the things that are most popular? What are the top 10, trends which are happening? We want to really focus on the historic kind of insights and trends. And that's something which can be done, quite easily with the tools that are available. Even if you're not an expert, in data science, you can pick up, one of the analytics tools and start to actually develop some insights. But again, it needs to be linked back to what should we be measuring, right? So what should we be understanding? So first of all, you have a good definition of that. So KPIs, metrics, all these kind of things. Then that links back to, okay, do we have the data to fulfill that or not? If we do, start doing it. If we don't, how can we acquire it? So then we start on this cycle of then improving the data and improving the insights. And then you can, once we know what's happening, then we can start to go into assessing how things are happening and why things are happening. So why are things trending? Why is something popular? Why is something not popular? Why are people, what times people are buying things if you're in e-commerce? So there's all sorts of insights you can get into in the next stage, and then eventually into predictive and then prescriptive. But there's a whole lot of things you can do to get started. And at the moment, the barrier to entry is quite low, so you can get started with really a little investment in this space.
Years ago, I was being interviewed by a startup, by a company that they get a lot of funding from Silicon Valley, and then the role was data scientist role. And then when I was talking to CEO, I addressed, what kind of data do you have? And until that point, they had an impression about their minds that a data scientist is come and create a recommendation engine for us, but they noticed that the first thing is not really the building some recommendation engines, machine learning stuff. That the first thing is actually making sure the data pipeline, what kind of data you're collecting, are they siloed, for example? Because as Fazal, for example, addressed from his experiences, in most of the companies, data are sitting different environments. So how can you collect those data into a kind of one type of source? How you combine them in a kind of more meaningful way, I think requires a lot of work, and which takes us to more conversation about data engineering related stuff, right? Building the pipeline first before you take an action further. But I think one thing is, even before the data engineering joined the company, we're still collecting data, right, from Google Analytics or different contexts. I think a data analyst is also essential in turning those, even if those are siloed data sources, so turning into meaningful results, I think is very essential, I believe. In addition to that point, I believe that kind of addition to the team is also a kind of good start to talk about building a data-driven company, data culture within the company. You can't afford creating a data science team, which is very expensive today, but you can start improving your current employees' data literacy to make better decisions every time they make. Because, believe or not, I think we have number of data at every point, and how we treat decision-making process is very important. Are we relying on data, or are we relying on just our gut feeling, or decision is being relying just on the CEO's decision or the executive decision. So when I learned from Booking.com that they do 20,000 uh, testing every year, I was shocked. And one of their motto in the company, everybody can take a test, can make a test of any decisions, including the decision of CEOs. So they do everyday A/B testing just to make sure, what our customers are wanting, other than their executives decide the color of the website, color of the button. They go and test it, and then when they test it, they make that decisions based on that inputs. I think these are very critical, important points. I believe we have to address. I had a few other questions. So one questions was I was interested in. So we're talking about first-party data. So when we talk about data, most of us are referring to first-party data. The first-party data means is we as a company collect those data. That's our data. We own it and we turn it. So what kind of other opportunities exist in the market, and what other data-driven decisions can be made other than our data, or how can we enrich our first-party data with other decision-making processes? So I would like to ask Afraz about that, and then get Fazal's feedback if there's anything he wants to add.
Yeah, so obviously when it comes to anything where you want to build predictive models, machine learning, then generally the more data that you can acquire and the more data that you have, then the more accurate or the better models you can build. So that means that sometimes the data that you have might not be that data which can give you those predictive qualities in order to build a model. So you might want to look externally and see what data sets are available. So there are all sorts of data sets, for example, on different types of demographics for different types of regions. There's data available on I think simple things like weather, if that is something that you're interested in, especially like transportation, would be a case where that would be valuable. But you can find those in some cases open data sets, and in some cases commercial data sets. And in some cases you can actually think about how you can actually acquire more data yourself. So apart from the data that you are getting from your systems that you have in place, you can think about actually maybe we might want to, for example, get inputs from review sites, or maybe we want to set up our own review site. Maybe we want to take data directly from the customers themselves through surveys or other types of means. So this is where now you get into actually thinking about what kind of questions do we really want to answer. So we've done, if we're already kind of really good at measuring kind of what happened, why things happened. Now we want to go in deep detail and deeper into what is it that we should be asking. Like you mentioned, A/B testing is a good example. So what will people prefer? If I want to launch, I've got an option of 2 different products. I've got an option of 2 different pricing models. I've got an option of 2 different locations, or even multiple locations, multiple decisions, choices. How can I influence that? How can I make that data driven? It comes back to being able to identify those data sources, having a good integration pattern and architecture for them, and then getting the insights and building the models which will help you to answer those questions. So there are many opportunities where that can happen, and also you can also think about how to exchange data and even share data between organizations. So whereas before everyone was kind of very tight, if you like, protective of their data, both within the organization and sharing outside, now we're actually seeing that it's actually a value driver. You can actually monetize data. You can actually get the data that you have and exchange it with other parties as well. So there are all sorts of opportunities there for you to think about how your data is an asset for your company and how to enrich that with other sources.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Veysel, that you mentioned. So when we started, long time ago, one of the biggest challenges, I mentioned to you, the hospitality industry or travel industry wanted numbers, but there are no numbers out there on how many Muslims are traveling, because nobody today, even today, tracks, whether if there are, 10 million visitors to UK, how many of them are Muslims. Nobody, there is no tracking mechanism for that. So that was the biggest challenge when we faced. So, and that's where we really had to look at both building certain data sets of our own, acquiring external data, and then building a model. So we built this model to extract our estimation of Muslim travelers for each country, and we have been fine tuning that for some time. And today we probably have the best model to sort of come up with the Muslim travelers numbers each year based on the different data sets which we acquire, plus our own data sets that we have. So I think so I think, as you said, once you start collecting data, in our case we had a requirement to sort of do something. I mean, we had to produce numbers, and that forced us to sort of build our own models using our own data, plus, as you say, first party data and external data sets. And today we are the reference point for that data, which was never the intention when we started this process 12 years ago. We wanted to we want to rate hotels of how Muslim friendly they are. That was how we got started, but that took us on a journey of requiring data, and then we sort of built our own models to extract as Afraz was also saying, we do not have Muslim specific data out there, whether it's travel, whether it's buying patterns, or all these they everybody probably is collecting either demographics oriented data or country oriented data, but faith oriented data is hard to come by. So that's the biggest gap that you have. So we have tried to fill that gap from a travel point of view as much as we can through our own online surveys, developing models using these surveys plus external data sets.
Yes, I think the more data collected about Muslims, I think the more we understand how diverse this community is indeed, right? So, and then the products are being even differentiated. The messages, the marketing messages, the analytics are even being differentiated when it comes to targeting those different lifestyles within the Muslim community. I think this is important. So as our time approaches the end, in the early of our conversation, Afraz raised a few points about insight. Insight extraction, I believe, is very critical at any level of the company, by the way, with any types of data. So I would like to have a discussion about insight. What kind of insights are you, for example, generating in your cases if you own a company, or what kind of insights do you suggest our listeners, our entrepreneurs who are listeners right now, that they can benefit, that they can target first? And then also, if you have any recommendations, what kind of tools do you recommend for them to use? Tools are always changing, of course, but for somebody who wants to take an action right now, I think the names of those tools and benefits, comparisons of those tools would also be helpful. So I would like to start with Afraz and then move to Fazal, and then I have, if we have some time, maybe I have quick fire questions. I think they call it. Let me see. They call it rapid fire questions. Very questions and answer quickly. So I also would like to have that one as a kind of fun ending. But yeah, let's start with insights. tools, types of insights. What do you think, Afraz, about that?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Veysel. It's a great question, and unfortunately, many companies are still stuck in the Excel, kind of vicious cycle, and it's hard to get out of that. But Excel is not the be all and end all. It's not really the tool which is going to give you all the insights that you need, and not just the insights, but actionable insights, and the ones which you can rapidly share, monitor, and manage. So within the analytics space, fortunately now there are many tools which are kind of classed as being augmented analytics tools, where if you have good collection of data and it's structured well, and you're making sure the data quality aspects are all intact as well, when you point these tools to the data, then you can actually get a lot of automated insights which are generated. So typical some of the BI tools and analytics tools like Power BI, like Tableau, like Click. Those are tools which can actually jump or kickstart your analytics process. And so there's kind of two ways to do it. One is a bottom-up way, which is you have lots of data, and then you're kind of mining that data for patterns, which is typically what a data scientist does. So they're going through that data, applying different types of analytics to really understand different things about, something that we didn't know, right? So something about a particular customer segment, that they like to, buy a particular product at a particular time, and, they do it because this is happening. So you will find that out when you kind of mine that from a bottom-up perspective. And then you have kind of top down, where you actually have some questions which you want to answer. You really want answers to why do people go on holiday? Why do Muslims go on holiday? What do they want from that holiday? What is the thing which attracts them to these different places? Those are questions which require not a simple question. You need to do some deep analysis in that, but you have a starting point from which then you drill down. So there's analytics tools out there, and then which kind of lower the barrier to entry. But then you can also, when you go into predictive analytics, those tools can also help you build forecasts, build predictive models. And then if you want to really go into data science, machine learning, then you can use a lot of, if you like, low code tools, such as Data Robot, such as Data IQ, such as Rapid Miner. Those are tools where you're really getting into data science, and you're really getting to those predictive forecasts and predictive insights as well. So lots of opportunities, lots of tools there, really easy to get started, and to really grow that as you expand.
Yeah. So on our side, Veysel, to answer your question, so we, as I said, were deep into Excel. Afraz says, and then we, about 3 years ago, I think, we decided to get out of that. It's not an easy path once you have 10 years of data on Excel sheets. It's not easy, and it's still a challenge. However, we wanted to really, get on a path of, having better ways of managing our data. So we took two approaches, and we're still somewhere in middle of those two approaches. One is to build our own, put it into SQL databases and build our own, analytics tools. At the same time, we also have been putting all our data into something which was affordable for us, which is called Zoho Analytics. Actually, it's from Zoho, and it does a good job. As Afraz was saying, most of these tools, at least the Zoho Analytics, it gives predictive analysis already with all their bots and all that. You can ask questions through their bots and all that. So I think I think when we started 12 years ago, probably there were no such tools as easy to use as these days are. So somebody who's starting now don't have to be, really go deep down into Excel. However, the problem is that, when me personally, probably my new staff or not, I'm so used to, extracting whatever I want from Excel sheet. So, when I struggle with all these new tools, I my first is, okay, let me go back to my Excel sheet and extract that data that I want, because we want specific data. So I think there are tools now out there which which are affordable. You still need to have somebody who has a data mindset. Of course, it's not for everybody, I think. So that's what we
Right.
have been doing now. So yeah.
I think, yeah, I think Excel is still a very powerful tool, by the way, to generate day-to-day insights. I think I still love Excel, but the data space is growing very fast, and the new tools are being generated, are being created to automate staff. So the Excel is generally staying somewhere in our computer as kind of siloed. So I think there are a number of tools are growing that connects our different data sources, source systems into one, and then create a more meaningful results. So for example, CDPs, customer data platforms, are growing rapidly recently because people notice that, okay, we have number of data sources about one customer, for example, the customer service, phone calls, the website, the mobile apps, the social media. How are we going to connect them all and then enrich our customers so that we make better decisions about them? So you need to understand, you need to make sure that if there is an open case about a customer with your company, for example, about a product, it's not a good idea to reach out to them via email introducing a new product. Hey, come to our new product. So it's not a wise decision. So you need to make aware of those situations by unifying your customers. I think CDP space is growing. I would ask our audiences to explore that one absolutely. The second thing is, I believe, the cloud, right? So the cloud environment is growing very fast, and when you create some data in siloed environment, and it may go well on premises, it can go well, but when you want to build something bigger like machine learning projects in the future, so it's getting more difficult to benefit from those data sets. So that's why the more companies now are benefiting from the cloud, even though sometimes the cost is very, very high. But if you understand and know how you can use effectively the data cloud environment, so indeed it's very beneficial, it's very important, it's very crucial to scale up in the future for your company. I think these are also some additional points to what Afraz and Fazal addressed. I'm sure they had a lot of things to talk about cloud, I'm sure, because this is something that is really making an impact right now, growing. But because of our time, I would like to stop here and really thank every of our panelists here. It was very beneficial, very helpful for me, and I hope it was also helpful for our audience, for you. And if you have any chance, anytime, please go and explore other sessions in the summit. I'm sure you'll learn a lot. Thank you so much again for joining us. Take care and bye.